have you ever noticed how you feel after meeting with certain people? You probably know what I'm talking about, that heavy feeling or silence between your interactions. This invisible weight that follows you home, that's your energy field. And Carl Jung warned us precisely about these people. But nowadays, these 7 behaviors have been normalized. They aren't normal. And no, it's not just how relationships work. And you're definitely not crazy for seeing this. You've simply been trained, systematically, to confuse love with guilt, to confuse peace with silence, to confuse emotional neglect with maturity. You've been programmed to perform calm, while your confidence bleeds out underneath. And worst of all, your energy field, your life currency, which decides all money, all happiness, every good and bad thing in your life, gets sucked dry by these people. But in this video, you will learn all the tactics they use and how to protect yourself so you can control your own destiny. So let's start with the first. It's the softest, but the deadliest. Behavior 1. Mockery disguised as humor. It didn't feel like abuse, not at first. It felt like a joke. They teased you in front of the group, and everyone laughed, including you. You smirked, shrugged it off, maybe even clapped back with a sarcastic jab of your own. But when you got home and things were finally quiet, something about it kept echoing. Not what they said, what they meant. It wasn't the first time either. They made fun of your ideas, your clothes, your goals, your body. Sometimes it was subtle. Other times you were the main event. And every time you played along, because calling it out would have made you look weak, too sensitive, no sense of humor. So you told yourself, I can take it. But here's the truth no one ever taught you. Humiliation doesn't hurt less just because it came with a smile. Carl Jung would call this symbolic violence, when emotional damage is wrapped in language so light, it can't be confronted without being dismissed. And the more you tolerate it, the more it rewires your brain. You start believing what's being said, not just out loud, but underneath the words, you'll never be taken seriously. You'll always be the guy who almost made it. You're not dangerous, you're safe, laughable. And the worst part? You start participating in your own diminishment. You mock yourself before anyone else can. You turn into the easy target to keep the peace. But something in you is waking up now. And if you're being honest, you're not laughing anymore. Not really, because deep down, you know exactly what's happening. You've been training people with your silence, your laughter, your shrugs, that it's okay to break you down in public as long as it's framed as fun. And the emotional cost? Your voice gets smaller. Your presence gets softer. Your edge gets dull. Until one day you stop speaking up altogether, because you don't know where the performance ends and the real you begins. You weren't born to be a punchline. You weren't built to be the safest man in the room, the one everyone laughs at, because they know you'll never push back. Mockery is not how men bond. Mockery is how unspoken resentment gets disguised. You don't need louder jokes. You need clear boundaries. Because the next time someone uses you as target practice and calls it love, you'll either call it out or you'll call it home. Behavior 2. Emotional invalidation. You bring something up, not to start a fight, not to make a scene, just to be honest. You say you're hurt, that something didn't sit right, that something's been off lately, and then you hear it. You're overthinking it. You always take things so personally. It's not that deep. You don't even get a full sentence out before it's already been dismissed. So you start editing yourself. You rehearse before you speak. You wait for the right moment that never comes. You drop hints instead of being direct. You soften your language. You call it communicating better. But it's not that. It's an emotional translation for people who never learned how to listen. And the longer you stay in this pattern, the more dangerous it gets. Because eventually, you stop bringing things up altogether. You convince yourself it's not worth it, that you're just being sensitive, that maybe they're right. Maybe you overreacted. Maybe your emotions really are too much. Maybe it's you. Carl Jung called this psychic repression, when the parts of yourself that are inconvenient to others get buried so deep, you forget they were ever real. But they don't die. They just mutate. And if you've ever had emotions explode out of nowhere, rage, panic, total shutdown, it's probably because you've been silencing yourself for too long. Here's what nobody tells you. Every time someone invalidates your feelings and you accept it, you train your nervous system to self-abandon, and your body keeps score. You develop anxiety, you lose your sex drive, you get exhausted for no reason. You find yourself lashing out in ways you don't understand, then apologizing like you're the villain in your own life. But you're not. You're just starved for space. Space to feel something and not be judged for it. Space to express without being corrected. Space to say, this matters to me. And have that be enough. Here's the worst part. Sometimes, emotional invalidation doesn't come from people who hate you. It comes from people who love you, but are terrified of their own feelings. So when you bring yours to the surface, they shut them down. Not out of cruelty, out of discomfort. But to your nervous system, it doesn't matter why. What matters is that every time it happens, you lose another inch of your voice. Let's be real. If you can't feel safe expressing something small, how the hell are you supposed to speak when it really counts? You're not overreacting. You're responding to a lifetime of being told your emotions are inconvenient. That's not weakness. That's a system failure. One you never chose, but you can choose to stop repeating. And that brings us to the most sinister pattern of all, the one that doesn't just dismiss your truth. It convinces you it never existed in the first place. Let's talk about gaslighting and how it rewires your brain to turn against itself. Behavior 3, gaslighting. You say something happened, not an opinion, a fact. You remember the moment, the words, the look on their face, and then they say, that's not what I said. You're imagining things. You always twist stuff around. And suddenly you're not defending yourself anymore. You're defending your own memory, and it doesn't matter how calm you are, how clear, how certain. They won't meet you there. They shift the tone, flip the script. Now you're the problem. You're emotional. You're unstable. You're attacking them. And the worst part? You start believing it. Gaslighting isn't just lying. It's psychological inversion. When someone takes your truth and holds it upside down long enough that you start apologizing for it. You walk away from conversations with less clarity than when you walked in. You second-guess things you know happened. You edit your story to match their comfort. You slowly start asking questions like, maybe I misremembered. Maybe I'm the one overreacting. Maybe I should just drop it. Carl Jung didn't use the word gaslighting, but he warned us about its effects. He talked about the fracturing of the self, when the psyche splits under pressure because it's being forced to live two realities at once. The one your body remembers, and the one you're being told is real. That fracture creates doubt. That doubt becomes confusion. And that confusion eventually becomes identity loss. Gaslighting isn't always loud or dramatic. Sometimes it's a smile and a subtle correction. Sometimes it's a calm tone that says, you're crazy, without ever using those words. And because it feels rational, you buy it. You tell yourself it's a miscommunication, a bad day, a misunderstanding. But deep down, something in you keeps ringing the alarm. Your gut tightens, your chest gets heavy. You leave the room and feel like something just happened, but you can't explain it. Let me tell you what did happen. You were taught to doubt your inner compass and call it emotional maturity. That's not maturity, that's mental corrosion. Here's the scariest part. Once you've been gaslit long enough by someone else, you start gaslighting yourself. You feel angry, but talk yourself out of it. You feel hurt, but minimize it before anyone else gets the chance. You start hiding your feelings from your own mind, so you don't have to question them anymore. That's when you know it's deep. Gaslighting doesn't just confuse you, it rewrites your instincts. And if you tolerate it long enough, you lose your ability to tell danger from love. But here's the line. If someone makes you question your memory every time you speak your truth, that is not a relationship. That's a power game, and the only way to win is to walk off the board completely. Behavior 4. Silent contempt. They don't yell, they don't insult you, they don't storm out or slam doors. They just stop seeing you. No eye contact, no warmth, no effort. They speak around you, over you, like your background noise. You're not being hurt with words, you're being erased with silence. And here's the twisted part. Because they're not being mean, you start convincing yourself that you're overreacting. But the ache in your chest doesn't lie. The weight in the room doesn't lie. You can feel the withdrawal, even when nothing is being said. Carl Jung said, "Loneliness does not come from being alone, but from being unable to communicate the things that seem important." This is that. This is emotional loneliness while lying next to someone every night. This is showing up with your full presence and getting met with emotional vacancy. It's the long pause before they answer you. The forced politeness, the casual dismissal, the way they check their phone when you talk, the way they listen like they're waiting for you to finish. Not because they care, but because it's a chore, and it eats at you. Not because it's dramatic, but because it's quiet and constant. You start walking on eggshells without even realizing it. You overthink texts. You lower your tone. You shrink your needs. Why? Because somewhere deep down, you've been trained to earn the bare minimum. And when even that disappears, you don't fight, you internalize. You say, maybe they're just tired, stressed, in a mood. And the part of you that once spoke up goes offline. Contempt doesn't feel like violence. It feels like cold weather in a house with no insulation. You get used to it, but you never get warm. You start living like a ghost. Everything functions, but nothing connects. Here's the real danger. Contempt isn't indifference. It's silent punishment. It's a slow withdrawal of love to teach you a lesson without ever saying the words. And when you stay in it long enough, you start to punish yourself. You go numb. You stop expecting closeness. You tell yourself connection isn't that important anymore. But that's a lie. Because the moment someone really sees you again, even for a second, you feel it. And it hurts like hell, because now you remember what you've been starving for. So let me say this clearly. If someone makes you feel invisible more often than they make you feel seen, that is emotional abandonment. No matter how calm it looks, no matter how much history you share, no matter how hard you've tried, you deserve more than presence without engagement. You deserve more than a body in the room and a wall behind the eyes. And that brings us to the behavior we almost celebrate in this culture. The one that gets mistaken for strength, duty, even masculinity. But underneath, it's the slowest form of spiritual suicide. Let's talk about self-sacrifice and how putting everyone first destroyed the parts of you that no one ever thanked. Behavior 5, self-sacrifice. They called you dependable, solid, unshakable. The guy who always shows up, the one who never complains, the one who holds it down. And for a while, you wore that like armor. You picked up the slack, stayed late, paid the bill, handled the crisis. You gave and gave because that's what real men do, right? You don't ask, you provide. You don't cry, you fix, you don't break. You hold it all together. But here's what no one saw. While everyone leaned on you, you had no one to lean on. You were drained, empty, depleted, but still showing up like a machine. You stopped sharing what you needed, stopped asking for help, stopped expecting anything back. Because deep down, you'd learned that needing less made you stronger. Carl Jung would call this a fracture in the self. Because when you suppress too many pieces of who you are in service of others, you don't become more noble, you become hollow. And then resentment creeps in. You smile, but your chest tightens. You help, but secretly hope someone will finally ask, "Are you okay?" They never do. Because you trained them not to. Every time you ignored your own exhaustion to stay useful, You taught the world to treat your energy like it was endless. Here's the thing. This didn't start with your partner, or your boss, or your friends. It started the first time you believed love was earned through being needed. So you kept earning it, with silence, with sacrifice, with service. You thought being good would protect you. Instead, it turned you into a ghost with good manners. And it never ends in a big moment. It ends in tiny, invisible ways. You stop asking what you want for dinner. You say, "I'm fine," when you're screaming inside. You numb out with work, distraction, or silence. Not because you don't care anymore, but because caring started to cost you everything. You want to know what real strength looks like. It's not giving everything away. It's knowing where you end and others begin. It's honoring your capacity, not bleeding for applause. It's having the courage to say, "I'm done carrying what isn't mine." Because the truth is, the world will never tell you to stop sacrificing. You have to decide that for yourself. Next, we hit the most painful behavior of all, the one that turns your soul into currency. All for the chance to feel like you belong somewhere. Behavior 6. Accepting abuse for belonging. You stayed, not because it felt good, not because you were blind, but because walking away felt worse than being mistreated. You made excuses. They're under a lot of stress. They just don't know how to show it. It's not that bad. I've been through worse. You told yourself loyalty meant endurance, that love was supposed to be hard, that sacrifice proved you were committed. But deep down, you weren't staying out of love. You were staying because you were terrified of being alone. That's what makes this pattern so lethal. It looks like devotion, but it's survival. Carl Jung talked about it without flinching. The greatest burden a child must bear is the unlived life of the parents. And if your worth was tied to performance growing up, if love always came with conditions, if silence felt safer than honesty, then you were wired early to tolerate pain if it meant staying included. So you tolerated it. The criticism, the dismissiveness, the subtle jabs that never stopped, the blame shifting, the threats, the punishment masked as feedback, the need to walk on eggshells just to keep the connection alive. And maybe you thought that made you strong. But here's what actually happened. You disappeared. You became who they needed, not who you are. You shrunk your truth, muted your intuition, rebuilt yourself around their moods. And every time you compromised a part of yourself for the sake of peace, you taught your nervous system that being chosen is more important than being whole. And here's the twist that hits hardest. It wasn't just them doing it to you. You were doing it to yourself. Every time you stayed quiet when you needed to speak. Every time you absorbed blame that wasn't yours. Every time you minimized your own pain to make someone else feel better. You weren't just tolerating abuse. You were accepting it as your place. But let me be clear. The moment staying connected requires betraying yourself. It's not connection. It's captivity. You don't have to earn love by suffering. You don't have to keep proving your worth to people who benefit from your silence. You don't have to beg to belong. Because if someone only values you when you're small, they don't value you. They value your submission. And now that you see it, you have a choice. You can keep making yourself smaller for their comfort, or you can step the hell out of the performance. Because the next realization flips everything. The truth that most people never get to. Because it's easier to blame others than face this one cold, sharp reality. You're not just tolerating these behaviors. You've been repeating them. Here's the part no one wants to admit. You're not just the one who was hurt. You've also become the one who hurts. Not out loud. Not with fists or screaming matches, but in quiet, unconscious ways, just like the people who trained you. Carl Jung called it the shadow. The parts of you you've rejected, disowned, buried. The resentment you said you didn't have. The rage you said you'd never express. The control you said you hated in others. but now use in your own subtle way. And here's the thing. The longer you tolerate abusive dynamics, the more you internalize them, then project them. You gaslight yourself. It's not a big deal, I'm overreacting. And then you gaslight others. Why are you so sensitive? You mock yourself. Guess I'm just the screw-up again. And then you mock others. Relax, it's a joke. You shut down when others hurt you. And then you punish people with silence when you're hurt. You hated how they did it. Now you do it too. But because your nervous system is running on code it didn't write, the very things you swore you'd never become, they crept in the back door while you were surviving. This is the moment most people bail, because blaming others is comfortable. But taking responsibility for how you now move through the world, that's where transformation actually starts. Jung said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate." This is that crossroads. You can keep replaying the script. You can keep handing out pain the way it was handed to you, quietly, unconsciously, with a smile. Or you can break the damn cycle, not with guilt, not with rage, but with awareness. The moment you see the pattern, it's yours to rewrite. This isn't about being perfect. This is about being honest. You were hurt, and you adapted. But now those adaptations are hurting other people, and hurting you all over again. This is your moment to stop performing strength, and start building integrity. Because without shadow work, there is no real healing. There's just self-deception dressed up as emotional maturity. And that brings us to what Jung really offered. Not advice, but a system, a way to reclaim your mind, reclaim your power, and rebuild your identity from the inside out. Let's talk about individuation and how to stop bleeding energy into everyone else's expectations. Now you see it. Not just the people who drained you, but the ways you've handed them the siphon, the patterns, the betrayals, the masks you've worn so long they almost felt like you. So what now? How do you stop bleeding energy into fake peace, toxic dynamics, and people who only see what you give, not who you are? Carl Jung had an answer, and it wasn't stay positive. It wasn't forgive and forget. It wasn't cut everyone off and go live in the woods. It was individuation. Individuation isn't some mystical buzzword. It's the psychological process of becoming your actual self, not the version of you that survived or the one everyone liked. It's not about fixing yourself. It's about reclaiming yourself, piece by piece. And it starts with this. 1. Awareness over amnesia. Stop pretending you didn't see the pattern. Stop justifying behavior that feels off. Stop calling your exhaustion normal. If it drains you, warps you, silences you, it matters. Call it what it is. That's manipulation. That's self-betrayal. That's fear running the show. Clarity is power. If you don't name it, you can't shift it. 2. Boundaries over performance. A boundary isn't a wall. It's a declaration of what you will no longer abandon yourself for. You don't need to yell. You don't need to explain for hours. You need one honest sentence. That doesn't work for me. I'm not available for that kind of conversation. If that happens again, I won't stay. People will flinch, some will leave. Let them. Boundaries don't push away love. They filter out harm. 3. Integration over image. You want your power back? Then stop performing your best self. Start integrating your real self. That includes your anger, your desires, your shame, not to act them out, but to own them. You're not whole because you're calm. You're whole when you can hold your own contradictions without crumbling. Jung didn't say, be good. He said, I'd rather be whole than good. This is what energy mastery actually looks like. Not control, not charisma, containment. You stop leaking energy into proving yourself. into explaining your pain, into managing the reactions of people who refuse to meet you. You keep what's yours. You speak when it matters. And when something doesn't honor you, you walk away, not in anger, in alignment. This is how Daniel did it. This is how you do it. Not all at once, but one pattern at a time, one no at a time. One breath where you don't abandon yourself at a time. This is your power, not given, reclaimed. The line you draw, the vow you make, the moment you finally say, I'm done tolerating what shrinks me. So now you've drawn the line. You've said it. I refuse to be shrunk. But here's the truth. That's just the beginning. Because the moment you stop tolerating disrespect, you become dangerous. Not to others, but to the systems that benefited from your silence. People will test your boundaries. They'll throw guilt, confusion, silence, charm, whatever worked before. Not because they're evil, but because you just broke a pattern they depended on. So you need something stronger than raw emotion. You need strategy. Rule 1, never argue. Redefine the frame. When someone tries to twist your reality, you're overreacting. You're too sensitive. You're remembering it wrong. Don't defend. Don't explain. Reframe. Say calmly, we're clearly seeing this differently. I know what I felt. Or even better, we can't have a real conversation if my emotions are up for debate. Then stop talking. You don't win by convincing them. You win by holding the frame and walking away if it's disrespected. Control the frame. The one who defines the terms of the conversation holds the power. Rule 2. Don't reveal where it hurts. Mask your triggers. Emotional manipulators feed on your reactions. They throw the bait to see where you'll flinch. So the next time someone mocks you, invalidates you, or pulls back just to make you chase, don't flinch. Don't correct. Don't explain. Let it pass like it didn't land. Then watch what they do next. They'll either escalate or get confused. Either way, you just took away their playbook. The truth is, you don't have to react to every move made against you. Silence can be a shield or a sword. Use both. Rule 3. Always have a layer they can't touch. Stop making your whole identity accessible. People should know parts of you, not all of you. You protect your energy by not being fully legible. Don't tell everyone what you're healing. Don't post every boundary on the internet. Don't broadcast your insecurities in the name of authenticity. The moment someone knows what matters most to you, without earning that access, they now have a lever they can pull. Control information, reserve mystery, never be fully decoded. Rule 4. Use strategic detachment. Someone's treating you cold, withholding attention, passive-aggressive, don't chase. Mirror, then pull away. Match their energy, calmly, quietly, then disappear for a while. You're not punishing them. You're letting them feel the weight of your absence. People often learn the value of your presence when you remove it without warning. You don't owe explanations for protecting your peace. Let distance speak louder than confrontation ever could. Rule 5. Never threaten. Move in silence. Stop saying what you're going to do. If this happens again, I'll leave. One more comment like that and I'm done. That's noise. The moment you broadcast your limits, manipulators will test you just to see if you'll follow through. Instead, say nothing. Just act. They don't need a warning. They need a consequence. You want real power? Don't predict your exit. Execute it. Rule 6. Keep your center unshakable. They might mock you, guilt you. Act like you're crazy for having boundaries. Use your past against you. Play the victim. Let them. The second you start arguing your worth or your reality, you've already lost the frame. You're not here to win debates. You're here to protect your center. Let your silence disarm. Let your presence interrupt. Let your boundaries redefine the relationship without negotiation. The strongest move you'll ever make is to stay grounded when they try to spin the ground beneath you. Rule 7. play the long game. Let distance reveal the truth. Sometimes the best way to see someone clearly is to step back. Stop texting first. Stop explaining your boundaries. Stop giving second chances like they're coupons. Give it space. Watch who checks in. Watch who respects your silence. Watch who adjusts and who doubles down on disrespect. Distance is clarity, and clarity is everything. You don't always need closure. Sometimes you just need a quiet exit and your dignity intact. Final thought. Power is quiet, but real power is invisible. This isn't about being cold. It's about being calculated with your energy. The world will bait you to react, over-explain, defend, and exhaust yourself. But you've been there before, and it cost you too much. From now on, you play to win, not to be understood. You move strategically. You protect your peace, and you stop trying to fix people who weaponize your empathy, because power isn't about control, it's about containment. And you finally have it. This is the moment. Not because something dramatic just happened, but because now you know exactly what you've been tolerating. And you can't unknow it. You can't go back to thinking silence is strength, or that being the joke keeps you safe, or that being needed is the same as being loved. You know now that every time you tolerated a soul-draining pattern, every time you stayed quiet to avoid tension, every time you disappeared just to keep the peace, you weren't being strong, you were being erased. One moment at a time. So here's the line. No more shrinking to be chosen. No more fake laughter to fit in. No more apologizing for finally choosing yourself. You don't need permission to protect your energy. You don't need approval to honor your instincts. You don't need to justify drawing a boundary just because someone else got comfortable with crossing it. Carl Jung said, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are." That privilege doesn't come from reading quotes. It comes from action. So if this hits you, don't just nod and scroll. Do something. Say it out loud. Drop it in the comments. Write it where you'll see it every damn day. I refuse to be shrunk. This isn't about becoming a different person. It's about returning to the one you were before the world trained you to tolerate your own disappearance. This is where it changes. Not with anger, with clarity, with intention, with a decision that no one else needs to understand, because you know what it cost to get here. You're not broken. You're not weak. You're not crazy. You're just done. And that is where your real life finally begins. This isn't healing. This is rebirth. Welcome back. Before you go, I want you to drop this in the comments right now. I reclaim my field. That's the code. That's the declaration. That's how you tell the algorithm and the world you're not going back to sleep. Because this isn't just a video, it's a signal. And if it lit something up inside you, then you already know. This journey's just beginning. So don't stop here. Hit subscribe, turn on notifications. I drop content that challenges your programming, protects your energy, and rebuilds your sovereignty from the inside out. Every single week. Watch the next video. It's waiting for you. And trust me, if this one cracked your shell, the next one will break the spell entirely. And if you want the deepest insights, the ones too raw, too honest, and too dangerous for the algorithm, make sure you're subscribed to the free newsletter.